welcome back to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and I'm joined today by two very special guests. We have...
you think I'm special? Thank you.
I think you're very special.
I appreciate that.
Deputy Managing Editor Joseph Sedian. Joseph. Gary? Glenn?
Greg.
Joseph? Greg.
Yeah.
Greg? Joseph
Good
Greg
try, though.
Sedian. That's close. And making a very special appearance, her very first appearance on WJ Live, is our brand new editorial intern, Deborah Van Klempen, who I am going to try very hard not to call Deborah Van Helsing throughout the course of the podcast.
It's a new nickname. We're just going with it.
I may try to call her that. I haven't actually really decided. Who is here to talk to us about one of our top stories from this week.
Yep, definitely. So one of our top stories this week, Bill Pascrell, a Democrat representative from New Jersey, actually tweeted out on Tuesday night. He said, "Tonight I'm calling for the eventual prosecution of Donald Trump and his enablers for their many crimes against the United States." And so basically this tweet comes with a list underneath of the reasons why he is calling for Trump's eventual prosecution. He lists many, many things in there, but basically the gist is that he believes that Trump is flouting democracy, that Trump is not taking the election seriously, and things along those lines. So my first question for you guys is, are the Democrats seriously threatening to put the Trump administration and the campaign on trial for contesting election results?
I think, fortunately, the answer to that question is no, and here's why. There was an NBC News story, and yeah, I know NBC is establishment media, often fake news, but they were citing unnamed sources, and they said that Joe Biden does not plan to kind of go after the Trump administration. He wants this to be, if Joe Biden becomes president, he wants this to be about his own administration. He does not want it to be about, going after Trump for 4 years. And I think that whatever Joe Biden's many faults, he may be one to hold a grudge, but he knows that it's not politically expedient, I think, for him to demonize Trump because he wants to focus on other things. He ran on the soul of America and all this stuff that is really a bunch of malarkey. But it doesn't seem like, that's what he's going to want to focus his presidency on. I don't think there's going to be much of an appetite for that. I think this is the sort of thing you always hear, right? I mean, the left said that George W. Bush was a war criminal, that Dick Cheney was a war criminal. And I'm sure there was talk, I was too young at the time, I'm sure there was talk that, when the next Democrat came in, they were going to investigate Cheney, investigate Bush. It never happened. It's all, I think it's all talk. It's not something they're serious about.
You know what I love about this is the sheer blatant hypocrisy of it. Yeah. So on at least two levels, the hypocrisy grift is strong with this one. So first of all, there's the level of Donald Trump is a tyrant, Donald Trump is a fascist. We're going to make lists of the people that we're going after once we're in power. Okay, so this is not the first call for this.
Lists always work out well.
Yeah, they've worked
Super
very well.
Yeah.
The history is replete with excellent examples of good governance that begins with enemies lists.
Yeah.
And we've seen that not just from him. We've seen OAC saying I'm keeping a list, and or somebody should be keeping a list. And other people are going to
OAC.
We're going to talk about her in a minute.
Who's OAC?
What did I see? Oh, OAC, AOC. You knew who I meant.
Then you said, "What did I see?"
I had 3 hours of sleep.
You are so old.
I had 3 hours of sleep last night.
Oh, no.
The control room is laughing. I can hear the control room laughing. AOC, we're going to talk about her in a little bit. OAC, we're not going to talk about her at all. We're going to talk about AOC instead. So there's that hypocrisy. The other hypocrisy here is the claim that Donald Trump isn't taking the election seriously.
Yeah.
There is a constitutional process that we're going through right now.
Right.
Which is why we have yet to proclaim Joe Biden the winner of the election. Don't even call him the president-elect. And that is we are taking the election process seriously. Donald Trump is taking the election process seriously by trying to make sure that voters' votes are counted properly, that illegal votes, to the degree that they exist, are not counted and therefore disenfranchise legal voters. So for this clown, frankly, to claim that Trump is the one who needs to be prosecuted for not taking the election seriously. I mean, that is that takes some guts to make a call like that.
Guts the right word.
Guts was not the first word that came to mind. It's the word I'm going to use on WJ Live. Powered by the Western Journal. What else you got for us, Deborah?
Well, it's interesting that
I
Bill
told you I was
Pascrell-
punchy.
It's interesting that Bill wasn't the only one that made claims that the enablers of Trump needed to be prosecuted, that there needed to be a list made. There are several people that have done it, like you mentioned, AOC. Also, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she went on MSNBC Live on Thursday, and she said there could be much longer-term problems for anyone who participates in an effort to undermine the election. And so that in and of itself just kind of speaks volumes to...
Same kind of idea, right?
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
making lists again.
Yeah.
Definitely. So the next question I have for you guys is, do we think that if Joe ends up getting elected come January, not that Joe Biden, not that Joe.
I would be a great and benevolent leader.
You are literally
I
not old
believe it.
enough to be president of the United States yet.
Don't worry,
You
he'll
were
get there.
saying?
He'll
We'll
get
see
there.
in
Anyways,
2032.
do we think if Biden is elected come January that all of these Democratic officials are still going to be clamoring for Trump to get raked over the coals in trial?
You know, if there is a Joe Biden presidency, going back to what Joe alluded to earlier, I don't think so, because obviously if there's a Trump presidency, yes, those calls will continue. If Trump is in
Right.
fact reelected, we're going to have another 4 years if he's illegitimate and he's a criminal and he's,
Not my
Hitler's
president.
clone and not my president. Exactly. We're going to have another 4 years of that. Under a Biden administration, I like to think that what Biden wants as his legacy, is really some sort of healing, unification, a calmer thing. Now, I'm not saying that he even wants those things out of pure motives, but I think he'd like to be thought of as the guy who
Yes.
brought
The
that
man
to the
who
country.
unified America.
Exactly, and you can't really do that while you're prosecuting members of the former administration. So,
Yeah.
so I like to think that Biden's desire for that legacy, which I really believe is his whole, that's like 98% of why he ran for the presidency in the first place, is to have that thing to be remembered for. I really think that hope for that legacy will prevent him from allowing that kind of stuff on his watch,
Yeah.
if he's ever in the Oval Office to begin with.
Yeah, and again, Joe Biden has many things that I don't like, but he is the sort of person who seems kind of obsessed with the power, the office of the presidency, and seeing himself as, oh, I'm the president, I'm above that, or whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like the type of person who's going to be tweeting about. I mean, Trump was tweeting for 4 years about Crooked Hillary and about Spygate and Obama spying on him. I don't see, and even then there was very little criminal investigation into the people who spied on Obama's campaign.
Yeah, even where there's a good chunk of evidence.
Even
yeah.
when there's, and so I just don't see Biden doing that. I see him trying to make America forget that Trump existed.
He wants to be thought of as the elder statesman.
Yeah.
As the really, he doesn't want to be thought of as this way, but he wants to project the image of the political elite.
Yes.
The statesman who is above all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you, Joe. I think there are other Democrats who might think differently, but I think Joe Biden, to the degree that he's able to control them, if he's ever in the Oval Office to begin with, would try and put the kibosh on that.
I think there's a bigger chance that in sort of the swamp sector, if that makes sense, not necessarily like the government jobs, but all of the things surrounding that sort of make up the swamp, the consultants and the
K
TV
Street
and the K Street and all the journalism and all that stuff. I do think they want to kick Trump people out of that. I think there's a good chance that
that's a
those
really good
people
point.
are edged out. Even in like the bureaucracy, I see the liberals as trying to make sure that Trump administration campaign people, campaign people can't sort of get a job in D.C. again.
I think that's a really great point.
Yeah.
I think, after Donald Trump exits the White House, whether that's in January or in 4 years, I think George Conway's job prospects are probably a lot better than Kellyanne Conway's, at least within the
after
Beltway.
they figure out their weird situation.
Yeah. Just job prospects. I don't know how I don't understand how they even do that. But James Carville has the same kind of situation with his wife too, and they make it work. So more power to them.
Yeah. That was a 92 election grift.
Yeah.
So,
anyway.
Yeah.
Joe, you wanted to talk about AOC?
I'm going to talk about AOC a little bit.
AOC or OAC?
OAC.
OAC?
Not OAN, OAC.
OAC or AOC?
AOC.
Okay.
Now I'm confused. Anyway,
My
I have
job
big
here is
breaking
done.
news. AOC said something and she was not completely wrong. We're going to put the tweet up on the screen.
I'm glad I was sitting
AOC
down when you said that.
I know. AOC said, to get the virus under control, we need to pay people to stay home.
Maybe we're not going to get the tweet up on the screen. Maybe.
Anyway, that's what she tweeted. It was a quote.
Say it again, Joe.
To get the virus under control, we need to pay people to stay home.
Okay.
Now, is she wrong here? I would say she's partly wrong, but not entirely. From a libertarian, and I'm a libertarian, and a small government point of view, I think that if the government is going to force people to shut down, force people to not work, then they better at least pay them some money to do that. Now, the thing is, AOC and all the people like her want to completely shut down the economy. They want to shut down the country, basically. And they're wrong to do that. That is, without a doubt, wrong. But
if they're going
if they're doing it,
Yeah.
they had better pay money. I don't understand quite kind of the argument that says, the government shut everything down, but we shouldn't give stimulus. We really should give, if the government's going to shut us down again, I don't think they should do that. They should give us stimulus because they are forcing you not to earn money. So they had better pay you to not go about your life like normal. So I guess my question for you guys is, do you agree with AOC? Should we pay people to stay home if we're going to make them stay home? And by we, I mean the government.
I'll go first.
Take it away, Deborah.
All right. Honestly, a broken clock is right twice a day. I think that you are right. AOC is right in some aspect. If, like you said, if the government is going to make people stay home, people can't stay home with no income coming in. That's just not, I don't think that that's a possibility. I don't think that's a viable option. But I don't think that a lockdown is the way to go, definitely. I think that there is so much more to be said for small businesses staying open, for families being able to see each other, just in terms of mental health. I think that with every life that we're trying to save by keeping people away from COVID, we are taking a life from somebody who's committed suicide because they're unemployed or because they can't see their family members. So yeah, I think that I agree that she's right, that if the government is going to force people to stay home, they need to pay them, but I don't think that's the way to go at all.
So I agree on the first part for sure. I'm totally anti-lockdown. I am, and here's why I'm anti-lockdown. It's actually a pretty simple equation. COVID is not the bubonic plague. It is not typhoid. It is not smallpox. It is none of those things. And the reason it's none of those things is because the government has to tell us to stay home. If it were the bubonic plague,
people would be staying
we
home.
would stay home.
Yeah.
We'd be like, I don't want the bubonic plague.
No thanks.
I have said before, and I'll say it again, I am ready to swim in a canal of COVID juice to be done with this.
What is COVID juice?
I don't even know, but I'd swim in it.
Okay.
Just to be over, for this thing to be over. I am absolutely, give me a test tube of the stuff. I will drink it. I will anoint my eyes with it, whatever it takes.
He's ready. He's
to
ready
get
to
it
be
into
vaccinated.
my system. I want to be done with
Inject
this.
it.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I am just sick and tired of this. So yeah, I'm totally anti-lockdown. If this is a real danger, people will lock themselves down.
Yeah.
So it is unnecessary. I think once I believe a lot of this hysteria will go away once there is a definite end to this election. I think a lot of this is still caused by power grab, simple power grab. So I start with that. The money question to me is a little more nuanced. And to be honest, I don't know that I know what I think the government should do there. On the one hand, it's all our money to begin with,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and I resent AOC saying, we, the government, will give you some money
Yes.
to stay home. It's my money. You can,
I gave it to you first.
Yeah, thanks AOC for giving me my money. You know, that I don't like. I also resent the fact that this money is not going to be paid for by anything. This is going to be, it's just going to add to the federal deficit, which is over $20 trillion now. Not really a problem
ship
for
has
me.
sailed on clarity about that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm going to die before that ever gets paid off. You guys should be worried about it. You will still be around. I'm pretty
You
sure.
might even get Social Security. We're not.
I think I'm older than the two of you combined. So you guys should be thinking about the deficit. I do think about it, but honestly, in terms of my children and grandchildren having to pay that at some point. So,
Unfortunately, I think sorry to cut in. I think
No.
it's a bipartisan issue now where I agree with you. The debt and the deficit is big, but Republicans and Democrats
Don't care.
kind of have a secret little handshake behind the.
They don't care.
They don't
That's
care.
right.
I don't think Trump cared even a little bit.
Right.
I don't think any Democrat cares. I think every Republican who pretends that they care is lying because they didn't care.
No, you know who cares about it?
Rand Paul.
I was just libertarians.
That's it.
Libertarians are
Yeah.
the only people who care about it. So it is a little
There's
surprising
a
for me to
handful
hear
of people
from
in
you.
Congress: Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, and that's it.
Yeah, it really is.
But you say it's
Jordan
surprising.
Peterson probably cared about it.
Probably. You say it's
That's
surprising
the
to hear
only
that
other
from me,
libertarian I
but
can
see,
think of.
the libertarian argument here is that the government's forcing you to do something, right?
Yeah.
So they better pay you if they're going to force you to do something.
There is logic to that
Yeah.
argument, Joe, and that's why I say I don't know that I disagree with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
If I agree with it, I resent agreeing with it. That's kind of where I am.
That's
Like,
what most people who agree
if
with me.
if I agree with it, I really am not happy about agreeing with it. If that is true, I don't want it to be true.
All right.
How's that?
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question then, both of you. Let's jump ahead 2 months, right? And I would say fast forward, but George hates that word.
I do, in fact,
He
hate
despises
fast
it.
forwarding.
So let's jump ahead to 2 months. It's January 21st, right? And let's imagine, for the sake of hypotheticals, that Joe Biden has been sworn in as president.
Okay.
What do you think kind of a stimulus package might look like? A stimulus and a lockdown might look like under potential Biden administration. So are we going to be locked down? And if we're locked down, do you think we're going to get stimulus checks? Are we going to get paid every month? Are some people going to get paid? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's tricky because I think that, like you said earlier, Joe definitely wants to be known as a man of the people. He wants to kind of sway where the wind blows and not you.
I don't think anybody would dispute that you are a man of the people, Joe.
Thank you.
Well, yes.
She means
that's-
the other Joe.
the other Joe.
Second
Joe Biden.
best Joe.
Second best, yes. Well,
Third best Joe.
Like fourth.
Joe's,
Joe.
There's a
yeah.
few.
Okay, he's way down the list. Never mind.
Anyway, I don't know if Joe Biden is going to want to go into lockdown. I think that he might be too hesitant to do that. I think he might be too hesitant to pull a national lockdown. And I say that because there's been a few instances before where he's been asked a question similar to that, and he's kind of hesitated, obfuscate along those lines. And so I think that if there is a lockdown, I don't know if Joe's going to be completely on board. I think that he might have to get on board if there's some radical leftists that are pushing it enough.
He's basically said he would listen to the science, right? So, like,
Yeah.
if the scientists are telling
what
him
does
to
that
lock
mean?
down. Oh,
Yeah.
There's so many different
It's the listen to the
Yeah.
science grift.
yeah.
so many different
It's the
opinions on
experts
that.
say grift.
It's exactly. It's the expert
Mm-hmm.
grift. I think you make a good point, Deborah. I do think that assuming that things in Georgia in January go the way we think that they are going to go, and the Senate remains in Republican hands, I think Joe Biden is going to be limited in what he can do. And even in the House, which is Republicans should celebrate the wins that we got in the House, regardless of what happens with the presidential race.
Yeah.
That margin is going to be much tighter. Nancy Pelosi has a lot less wiggle room to work with. So what Joe Biden is able to do is going to be limited by what he thinks he can get through the Senate. Now, Joe Biden does have a pretty good record of working across the aisle. And certainly he and Mitch McConnell have known each other.
Yeah, it's the bipartisanship, Griff.
Yeah, for a gazillion years. I think they've both been in the Senate for combined, 194 years, something along those lines. So they've worked together for a long time, and they might be able to get something done along those lines. But I also think Deborah makes a really good point. Joe Biden wants to be known. Obama had that famous line about the ocean levels won't rise anymore, and Reagan had Morning in America. I think that's how Biden wants to see January, assuming he were to be inaugurated. I think he wants the next day to look like a brand new dawn. And
there is no red America or blue America.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the one America grift.
Yeah.
So. I think there'd be I think he would really hesitate to do anything that makes it look like the country is worse off on January 22nd than it was on January 20th if he's inaugurated on the 21st.
Definitely.
So
that's a great point.
I think he would, I'm not saying he wouldn't do a lockdown, mask mandate, whatever. I think he'd really think twice about it for those reasons.
Anyway, I'm going to move it along to George for our next segment, which is about big tech.
Yeah. So you may have seen it, but you probably haven't because I published it about 15 minutes before we came on here today, and you've been watching us. So, but you should see it. And by it, I mean my latest weekly column. I have a weekly column that I write about once a quarter.
Yeah,
it's a kind of interesting thing that I do.
I've seen that about 3 of the weeks that I've worked.
Yeah. About 4 times a year I write my weekly column. It's called the Uppercut. And this week I did one. And it's actually one of my favorite things that I do at the Western Journal. It's just so hard to carve the time out to get it done. Yeah. But
so
something...
your Thanksgiving pun?
No, it was not. So... I've totally lost my train of thought, Joe. So the reason I wrote this one literally was because I was so annoyed at Facebook yesterday. So yesterday, Donald Trump's legal team held a news conference. I'm sure everybody is aware of that. Most of you have probably watched it. It was to discuss allegations of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election. Now, this is obviously a newsworthy event, right? Even if this news conference were as crazy as the mainstream media would have you believe it was. Right? It's been described as bizarre, freewheeling, and Exelon did call it crazy.
Wild.
That's what the established media wants you to believe because they don't think you're going to watch it.
Side note, I've read the word freewheeling to describe either a Trump press conference or a Trump campaign press conference at least 50 times in the past year. Because that is the only... They need to find a new word to describe it. We understand that it was kind of, all over the place.
Yeah.
Find a new word. Freewheeling, we're done. No more freewheeling.
And don't use it in this case because this was just a press conference. If you've ever watched a press conference that has more than one speaker, there's generally a little disorganization. There's, people got to figure, who's talking next, whatever. There was a little of that. But there, nobody was running around with their hair on fire. I mean, it was the mainstream media wants you to believe that this was just like a circus, when there were elephants and clowns and dancing girls, and it was some lawyers talking. That's what it was.
And a minor hair dye issue.
Minor, very minor.
There was nothing crazy about it. All of which is kind of my rant for the day, and secondary to really what my anger is about this issue. The Trump legal team had to do a news conference because the allegations that they were making, and they didn't tell me this, this is my surmise, but I believe it to be true. The allegations they're making aren't being covered by the establishment media. They're being censored on Twitter, on Facebook. Whether they are true or not is almost a secondary issue. When you have personal counselors, I mean, it matters whether they're true or not, of course. But when you have personal counselors to the President of the United States making allegations, that's news, right? Whether they can prove it or not is a secondary issue. It's an important issue, but it has nothing to do with the newsworthiness of it. If Donald Trump stands in front of a microphone and lies his head off for 20 minutes, that's still news. So Facebook doesn't want to count that as news. However, Facebook does not want you to see a news conference done by the president's legal team. We know that because they censor this material anyway. But here's what they did yesterday that really got under my skin. The Western Journal decided to carry this news conference live. We just put it live on our Facebook page and ran it, just like watching a live news report or whatever. Facebook, one of Facebook's fact checkers, then puts this flag on it, the partly false fact check flag on it, which is, first, it's ridiculous on the face of it. Now, the point of running the news conference, the point of us running the news conference, was not to say everything these people are saying is gospel truth. It's to say this is what these people are saying. Mm-hmm. That's newsworthy because these are newsmakers. These are newsworthy people. Did they in fact say these things? Yes. Here's the video of them saying it. It's live. They're saying it right now. So I can understand a fact checker wanting to fact check Rudy Giuliani. If he says something that they don't believe is true and they want to correct that, okay, that's a legitimate thing to do. Or, any of the speakers that were there. But for them to fact check the Western Journal for bringing news to our readers is absolutely...
As a news site.
As a news site, right, which is kind of what we're here to do. That's ridiculous. What's more ridiculous is they put this tag on it, and then when a fact checker does that on Facebook, they'll put a link that you'll see the CY button there. You can click on that and it'll take you to an article about the fact check. Well, the article this button takes you to is 2 months old. It has nothing to do with this video at all. Unless it were written by a psychic, there's no way it could have anything to do with this video. It was so bizarre. So this morning I reached, and that showed up yesterday, and I ignored it. I'm like, this has got to be some stupid mistake. It's ridiculous on the face of it. I'm just going to ignore it, and hopefully it'll go away. Because sometimes it does. Facebook has glitches like any other technology. That's not what happened. I came in this morning, it was still there. So I emailed Facebook, and I said, how can the Western Journal be penalized for statements, even if they are untrue, that we had no way of knowing were going to be made during a live video?
Yeah.
How can you penalize us for that? Facebook sent me no response to that email. That is not very surprising. That's the typical response I get when Facebook realizes that it has made an error. But shortly after I sent that email, the partly false label has been removed. So you can go back. If you haven't seen this news conference, you can go to Western Journal's page and you can play it and you won't get that tag anymore. But that's a screenshot that we just put up there so you can see what it looked like when it was still up there. So look, what the Western Journal wants to do, what I want to do, what these two people sitting next to me want to do, we have a whole newsroom full of people who want to do it, is bring you truth as best we understand it. That's what we are here for. Our motto is equipping readers with the truth. Readers being viewers or listeners, obviously, on a podcast, but Western Journal's motto is equipping readers with the truth. Truth is foundational to what we do.
It is one of our thingies.
It is one of our thingies, as we say in the newsroom. We don't do that perfectly. We do it pretty well. And when our failures are pointed out to us, we are quick to correct them. And we appreciate when they're pointed out so that we can correct them because truth matters to us. That is not enough to appease the big tech tyrants at Facebook, apparently. Nope. So here's my question for you guys to start with. What would be enough to appease the big tech tyrants at Facebook?
I think if we were to suddenly say, you know what, we're not conservative anymore, we like Biden, I think then it would be enough for them to say, yeah, they're posting a live video, let's let them play it. I don't think there's any way that conservative news outlets right now are going to get a pass for simply reporting the news just because of the way that the narrative that has been set in mass media and the narrative that has been set by these big tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, Google. I just don't think there's any way.
So if you think MSNBC you think MSNBC, if they ran this video on their Facebook page, would have gotten away with it?
Oh,
They would
absolutely.
wouldn't have had a fact check on that.
Absolutely.
I disagree, though. I think that I think it's the other way around. It's the fact that MSNBC did not run it
Right.
makes Facebook say, when the Western Journal or sites like us run it, that makes them say, well, MSNBC, who we trust, or NBC or CBS or whatever, isn't running it. That makes it false. When
No,
these
you're
That's
right.
why
You're right.
we
Yeah.
have to run it, because
Exactly.
these are news makers. These are people who have the president's ear. I don't know that Donald Trump has a closer counselor than Rudy Giuliani. He may, but I'm not aware of one. He's certainly very much in Trump's inner circle.
Yeah, at least one who's been there for as long as
Yeah, and they've known each
Yeah.
other for forever. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, they're
both
from
New
New York
Yorkers.
Yeah.
So this is news. This is newsworthy. Again, whether they're just making stuff up, I don't care if they're up there, coloring in coloring books. They're newsmakers. That matters.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for, I am a libertarian, as you know. I
had not noticed.
am
that
not
about
one
you, Joe.
for regulating social media companies. That being said, you look at Facebook and you look at Twitter, you look at all these people, and it is clear that they have a left-wing bias. I think they should be allowed if they want, but that is quite clear. I think it's super, super important to note, right? If you watched Rudy Giuliani's press conference, I watched it. I did not love parts of it. There were probably some points he made and some points that I said, I don't necessarily agree with this. The point, as you said, is not, well, we're going to censor this because we don't like it or because it's not true, which some of the things he said may not have been true. I'm just going to say that. They may not have been true. If you
Or
want
at
to
least
be,
they may not have been
if
substantiated.
you want
He
to
didn't
be-
prove their
exactly,
truth there.
not
Yeah.
substantiated. If you want people to believe that you are a platform for news, that you are a place where people can go and interact with other people, where you can be a community, a platform, and that's what Facebook
distributor,
wants people to
not
think
a-
that it is, then don't censor. It's
Right.
as simple as that. Just don't censor. I'm of the opinion, and it's probably extreme, that you shouldn't censor Alex Jones, who I think is the craziest dude one of the craziest dudes I've ever heard. The QAnon conspiracy, absolutely nutcases. But Facebook shouldn't censor them because then it's becoming the arbiter of truth. You should let people watch it and let them decide, because they're smart enough to decide
Right.
Yeah.
what they agree with and what they do not agree with.
And they
Yeah.
can't become smart enough to decide if you don't give them that information.
Yeah, they're treating
to
them like
make a
babies who
decision.
are not
That's right.
capable of making these decisions for themselves.
That's right. Well, so what does this mean for our readers and our viewers? I don't think this is the last instance of Facebook censorship that the Western Journal is going to experience. In fact, this one was so bizarre and so concerning to me that and we've seen it before. We've seen Twitter, post warnings on Donald Trump's tweets or whatever, as if we were all so moronic that we can't tell truth or discern fact from fiction on our own. We need Jack Dorsey and his magic beard to tell us
nose
what,
ring.
His nose ring, yeah.
what's accurate and what isn't. Is it the nose ring that's magic? I thought it was the beard.
I don't know.
I think it's the nose
I
ring.
don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
the billions of dollars
it
he
could
has
be.
that does the magic.
There it is.
Yeah, okay. I think you're probably right about that. So this is not the last time we're going to see this. And what Facebook wants to do is keep the truth that we are trying to get to you from getting to you. That's literally what they want to do. Whether they are well-intentioned in that because they don't think what we're saying is true, that's a possibility. I don't particularly believe that very much, but it's a possibility. I think that's certainly true of some of the people who work at Facebook. Or whether they just have more nefarious purposes in mind. There are probably some people at Facebook coming from that angle as well. Either way, they don't want what we do to wind up in front of you. They don't want you to read what we write. They don't want you to watch what we produce on video. They don't want you to see the memes that we share with quotes from famous people on the left and the right. They don't want you to have that information. And I'm picking on Facebook because they're the ones who picked on us, but it's not just Facebook. It's Google, it's Apple, it's Twitter. Big tech march largely in lockstep in these areas. Not necessarily because they coordinate, although I think there's probably some coordination, but just because they all think the same.
I think
they
it's
all,
just the worldview.
Yeah, they all live within, a few miles of each other. They all share that worldview. So I don't think they need to get up in the morning and call each other and say, how are we going to get conservatives today? I think they wake up in the morning and think about that anyway. They don't have to talk to each other about it. So what can you do about that? Well, there are a couple of things I'm going to ask you to do right now. The first is to subscribe to this podcast, WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. You can do that on YouTube. It's very easy to find. It's youtube.com/WJ Live. You can click the subscribe button. We see our numbers all the time. We know that many of the people who watch us are not subscribed. So you really help us when you subscribe to this podcast. So that's the first thing you can do for us. Click that subscribe button, and then, so that you'll be notified every time a new episode comes out, click on the bell.
Ding!
You got so excited to do that. You were just ready.
That's why. It's the only reason he's on the podcast anymore. It's the only reason
no
he comes
other
here.
reason. Yeah.
The other thing that we need you to do is go to westernjournal.com/join. westernjournal.com/join. There you will find a number of subscription options that allow us to come directly to you. You can bypass all of this big tech censorship. You can, for pennies, really, for $5 a month, less than that with an annual subscription. More than that if you want some of our premium options, which are fantastic as well. But just for $5 a month, you spend more than that a day on coffee. And you know you do. I'm looking at you. You know you spend that on coffee. For $5 a month, you get a ad-free experience, and you get the guarantee that you will be able to get direct access to our content. More importantly, you support good journalism. You support our efforts to bring you the truth. As we do this, we know we're going to be censored more. We know that's going to happen. We know we will be blacklisted by advertisers who are pressured by the left not to support shows like this one or publications like the Western Journal. We know that's going to happen. We need you to take the place of those advertisers by supporting us directly so that we can continue to dig up the truth and then get it to you as best we can. Again, we're going to mess that up. We're not perfect. Not everything that we write is going to be 100% accurate because we're going to make mistakes. But we'll fix those mistakes as fast as we can, and I guarantee you that nothing that we send you is because it's sloppy. We're doing the very best we can to understand truth so that we can bring truth to you. And that is a promise of everybody in the newsroom at the Western Journal. It's my personal promise that is our 100% of our effort goes into that every day. We hope you appreciate it. And if you do, please go to westernjournal.com/join and choose a way to support us there. We very much appreciate your support.
And George rarely points, so when he's pointing, he's very serious.
I'm very passionate if I'm doing this. We're going to end there, not only for today, but for this week on WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm going to start making.
Was I supposed to say that?
No, I'm just going to start making people wait for it. I feel like it's a dramatic thing.
Okay.
I think people like that.
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
I think Joe liked it.
I think you like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Could I just keep doing it because I like it?
Yeah, well, you're the boss.
Okay. A quick programming note. We will be taking a hiatus for Thanksgiving. So we will be here on Monday and Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, which is our normal time. Next week, we'll be off Wednesday through the following Monday for an extended Thanksgiving break, and we'll be back on that Tuesday, December 1st, I think that is.
It is.
Again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Come back and see us. If you click subscribe on YouTube, and especially if you click the little bell.
Ding!
I love my job. Then you will be notified when that episode comes up. And so we really encourage you to do that so you don't miss out on anything that breaks. We will, of course, be publishing on the Western Journal all through that period. It's just WJ Live that won't be producing for those few days. So keep coming to Western Journal to get the truth that we uncover and bring to you. And we will see you next week, Monday and Tuesday, before we go on that Thanksgiving break. So we'll see you then. Thanks for being with us today. Thank you, Deborah and Joe. Deborah, pretty good job for your first time here, I think.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Logan Harris, and I am co-director of WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. We have enjoyed recording WJ Live these past few weeks, and we have some exciting news.
We are now on Apple Podcasts, but we need to ask you a favor.
In order to equip even more readers with the truth and continue our fight against big tech, we're going to need more subscribers and reviews.
Go find WJ Live on Apple Podcasts, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a 5-star review.
Thank you for helping us out, and don't forget, you can catch a new episode of WJ Live every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube and now Apple Podcasts.